Howdy, partners. Today I've got some bell for you. It's gonna make you root and toot like you ain't none done before. So if you likes the bell, don't forget to hit that like button and to subscribe to the channel. Okay, so what build am I referring to? I'm referring to Whirlwind, but we have done a lot here to improve this build and make it more than capable of blasting through tier 7 Infernal Hordes. Very, very good for speedrunning the pit and also Nightmare Dungeons. But it's not potentially going to be the best bosser. However, it is doing very, very well in that regard. So you're definitely not going to be dragging your feet too much in those encounters. As with always, we're going to go through the skill tree, the gear, and the Paragon board, timestamps below. And if you want, you can always jump into my Discord or my Twitch to ask questions or just hang out and see what the build looks like in person. Kicking us off then, let's have a look at the skill tree and we'll explain some of the core concepts here. The first thing you might notice is that we've gone for Whirlwind, but we only have 1 point in it. It says 8 on my screen, I know, but that's because I'm having 7 from the items. However, we are only putting 1 point in here, and we're only going into Enhanced Whirlwind. This is important because this is where we get most of our Fury back, but because Whirlwind is not the focus of damage, we don't actually care if it does damage or not. We just need it to cast Dust Devils. So that's the reasoning behind that. We do have 2 points into Pressure Point here, which helps with proccing our Vulnerable uptime and also helps with proccing Decimator from the Paragon board for a damage boost. For tankiness, we've got Imposing Presence and Martial Figure. We've also got Enhanced Tactical Rallying Cry. This gives us a ton of resource regen, important because through the Devilish aspect, we can generate additional Dust Devils through that. We have Tactical Iron Skin paired with Iron Warrior aspect, which gives us damage reduction, barrier, and a heal. So this is a huge, and an unstoppable. Don't forget the unstoppable now. That is a really powerful 1-button skill. We then have also, we've got Challenging Shout with Tactical, which gives us more fury per second. Good for uptime on Whirlwind, but the more fury we generate, the more Dust Devils we make as well through Devilish. We have then as well Power Warcry for a damage multiplier on top of a damage multiplier on top of a source of berserking. And then we've absolutely buffed the wazoo out of our shouts here with extended duration, a heal per second, and enemy damage reduction. Fantastic stuff. We've then got passives that increase our damage reduction and fury regen, as well as movement speed. Down here, we have Pit Fighter for damage, and we have Slaying Strike. Slaying Strike, huge damage multi for killing bosses when they are below 35% HP. You get 23% extra damage, and that helps a lot, trust me. Counter offensive for more damage multi. Good stuff. And one of the really cool parts of the build, and we'll explain more about this as we get into the gear, is the use of Call of the Ancients, and we'll have near a 100, if not a 100% uptime on this, which is absolutely insane. We have increased crit through heavy-handed finally, and our key passive is Unconstrained. As this is a direct damage build, we don't really care too much for bleeding or anything like that. Before we move on to the gear, just so you know, the weapon setup, if you press S in game to bring this up, hover over Whirlwind and make sure you have it set to dual wield. This build will be using a Ramalamanadabadani's Magnum Opus, and you definitely want to make sure you're actually benefiting from it. So the gear itself now, and I know what you're thinking, ooh, that's a lot of uber uniques for a build, but you don't need them. Please trust me, I play this build more without them than with them, but with how as well they are much easier to get this season, I don't feel as guilty recommending a build with them. So they are here, they do make it a lot stronger, but they don't need it, and I will have a version of the build in the build planner linked in the description that shows you how to use the build without them. So in this video, we'll just cover the core concepts of the build so you can understand why it works. The first item then is Ramaladani's Magnum Opus, and this gives us a massive damage multiplier on our skills, but this also applies to the Dust Devils themselves. So this is a nice, a massive, a beautiful DPS boost. The next thing that you're going to want as far as uniques is concerned is Arit's Bearing. Now, this is why we're using Call of the Ancients. they do insane damage. Trust me when I say every time you cast his ult, things are going to start getting deleted, especially tougher enemies. This helps a lot with single target DPS. And what you need to do with this, and it's really important that you do, is try to masterwork and greater affix on the cooldown reduction for Call of the Ancients. If you get this up high enough, you can have them up permanently, and that is the goal with this build. It is insane just how easy that is to do this season with the amount of cooldown reduction that you can get, and this is one of the best uses that I can think for it. It really shines. And then the next thing you want to make sure you pay attention to is your berserk damage. You want to temper this on at least like 2 pieces of gear. This is really going to help with capping out your Blood Rage Paragon node in the Paragon tree, which is another really good source of damage. In general, your priorities for your affixes is going to be main stat, crit damage. So you're really going to be just focusing on those. If you get other stuff like vulnerable or close, it's fine for now, but those are the things that you want to try and target. We have a full suite of Dust Devil aspects as well. Devilish, Fierce Winds, and Dust Devils. That's where we're going to be getting them all from. And actually, as a little tip to make this build even better, when you're tapping Whirlwind or when you're casting Whirlwind, tap it as opposed to holding it. This will help you generate more Dust Devils per second, and it does cost a little bit more Fury, but definitely is worth that trade-off. Then the last thing to mention is Iron Warrior. You definitely want this so that you have that damage reduction, the unstoppable, and all the good stuff on Iron Skin. Without it, Iron Skin loses a majority of its value. As for the tempers on jewelry, you can go for ultimate skill cooldown to help compensate for possibly not having good rolls on your Eretz Bearing. I have brawling skill cooldown because I was trying to go for Warcry, didn't quite hit it, so follow the planner, but this is also an option that you can go for if you're not lucky. And then finally, let's break down the key points of the Paragon board. Starting, we have Territorial in the beginning board. It's very important that we hit a lot of DR because our damage reduction is absolute trash this season. It's really bad, it's really low, and so we're having to spec into a bunch of that in the Paragon tree itself. Second board, Carnage. Ambidextrous, nice damage multiplier on dual wielding, which is what we're doing, so we take that. We also then, of course, have Blood Rage, as I've been talking. Getting it to 30% is the goal. Make sure you do that. If you are having trouble, you can pick up more nodes of Berserk damage here to the left of it, or you can pick up some more down here on the Carnage board, but ideally, you don't really want to use Paragon points here at all and get more stuff like HP instead. But, you know, like me, if you don't have the right rolls in your gear, you just have to compromise and pick them up there. Over to the fourth board now, we have Warbringer. This is our source of Fortify, which is really handy. Another damage reduction source there, so important that we do pick that up. We have some resistance nodes here if we need them, though usually you'll end up not needing these once you get the Eretz Bearings. It has a very high amount of all resist on it as standard. Up then into this board, we have Exploit. This is our initial source of vulnerability. We do have several sources of it. We have Pressure Point, Lucky Hit to cause vulnerability on enemies on our ring, and Exploit. Exploit's more there so that we can just kind of detonate smaller enemies, makes them vulnerable, and makes it more likely that we one-shot them. And it's, you know, of course, a nice little damage boost as well, 45% there. And on the final board, which is Decimator, which is a damage multiplier when we make enemies vulnerable or overpower. Finally, we have Martial. And the reason for Martial here is that every time we use a shout, it will reduce the cooldown on our other skills, non-shout skills, by 2 seconds. So all 3 shouts is a 6-second cooldown on Iron Skin, which basically brings it completely off cooldown after using. And it reduces the cooldown, of course, of Call of the Ancients by 6 seconds every time we use all 3. And the cooldown on these is very low in of itself. So this contributes a lot toward making it so that we can use our ultimate permanently. And that is the build in its totality. So if you want to check out any more of my builds, I have a list of them coming this week. We've got Death Blow, we've got Bash on the chopping board ready to go. They should be coming out shortly after this one once I finished editing them and all of that good stuff. If you have any questions in the meantime, want a sneak peek into what I'm doing, you can always check out the Discord or pop into my stream. I'm live most days. However, for the next week, I am going off to Blizzard HQ. and I'll be gone for about a week until the 17th. So I'll be back after that, streaming full-time again. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Big love to all of you, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!